Hello, everyone, and welcome to the MSAHA Basketball Weekly Show. I am your host, Trellis Williams, and this is the season finale for 2024-25. This is February 12th of 2025, and it is our final show of the season. This past weekend, we saw the championships for the MSAHA and 18U and 14U for both boys and girls. It was hosted by the Macomb Gators down in Summit, Mississippi, on the campus of Southwest Mississippi Community College. I want to start off by saying that they did a great job hosting that tournament. Went very smoothly and was a nice venue for it to be held in. We're going to talk about the results from the different tournaments as well as the All-Star game, which is coming up in a little bit, and then have a little preview for next year. It's never a season finale without having way too early outlook on next season. Folks, this is the MSAHA Basketball Weekly Show. We got a good show for you tonight. It begins right now. And we appreciate you joining us. Please be sure to hit that subscribe button to the TSJW Network YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button right now. So coming up this weekend on Saturday, we will have the MSAHA All-Star Game. And so this will be the fourth year, actually the fifth year of the fourth year of the All-Star game, but the second year where the MSAHA takes on the Tri-State Christian Conference All-Stars. It's another all-star team, and they played them last year, going to play them again this year. So we'll have a girls game, we have a boys game. Before that, we will have a three-point competition between members of both teams, so that should be interesting. We'll try to bring all that coverage to you right here on the TSJW Network YouTube channel. Coverage will begin at 2:30 p.m. live from Decatur, Mississippi, on the campus of East Central Community College. We're looking forward to that. Vowels Marketplace is our sponsor for that, as well as they were for the 16U, 14U, and 18U tournaments. And so today we will be talking a little bit. We'll be going over the results from the tournament. It's going to start off a little bit. 14U girls was won by the Laurel Lady Nighthawks. They took on the Muddy River Counselors in a 3-game series. Those were the only 2 teams in the conference competing for that championship. Laurel was able to sweep the Counselors in 2 games and win the 14U girls championship for the MSAHA. And then you have for 14U boys. Now, this one was very interesting coming in. So kind of had a 3-horse race here of what we saw at the beginning. We had the Jackson Victors, the number 1 seed, the PCA Paladins, who were the number 3 seed, but they had not played very many conference games, only played 2 of them. One of them was beating the Jackson Victors, though, so we knew that they were going to be very competitive, and they were in the championship game last season against the Muddy River Counselors. And then you had the Muddy River Counselors at the number 2 seed. Now, the Counselors ended up going without Noah Sanders, who had hurt his finger just the week before, so Noah Sanders did not compete for the Counselors. And the Counselors got beat in the semifinal by the PCA Paladins. Paladins shot very well. But this weekend was about the Jackson Victors. The Victors beat PCA in the championship game by 30 points, and the Victors get back into championship status, which was big for the Victors. It was their first MSAHA title of any level since 2020, and their first 14U boys championship since that year, 2020, back when Coach Willis, who's now the Counselors coach, was actually coaching the Jackson Victors 14U team, and Michael Williams was a player on the team. So this is a long time now. This is 5 years for the Jackson Victors. They're finally back, and they were able to get the 14U boys crown. Definitely earned it, too. Won in convincing fashion by 30 points in the championship ball game. So they finished first. PCA finishes second, while the Hasburg Forerunners finished third. They defeat the Muddy River Counselors in the third place ball game. Getting third place, the Counselors get fourth place in that tournament. And then you have the Macomb Gators, who are able to pull off, I do believe, the 5th spot, and the 6th spot went to Meridian. So that's the 6 teams there in the 14U boys tournament. But it's very interesting. The Jackson Victors come away victorious there. And then we look at the 18U. So we had number 1 seeds win 14U girls. We had number 1 seed win 14U boys. For the 18U girls, is very similar. Laurel Lady Nighthawks win the championship, beating the PCA Paladins in the championship ball game. Very interesting game. Very slow start for both teams. Laurel did not score a point for the first 6 minutes of the ball game. And PCA only led 5-0 at that point in time. But then Laurel was able to have an explosion, particularly at the end of the second quarter. Carmelina Santos was able to hit some shots. Then in the second half, you have Amelia Powell, who caught fire. I mean, the first half, she couldn't hit anything. Had 0 at halftime. Second half, 12 points for her in the second half. And so overall, as a team, they're able to put on a good performance. Morgan Taylor had a great game for the Laurel Lady Nighthawks, and Laurel just gets the win over PCA by around 20 points, I do believe. And so they were able to take the number 1 spot there and win the championship, the 18U girls, back-to-back. They won it last year. They win it again this year. But it was a challenge this year. They lost the conference game. They lost to PCA earlier in the season. They had a coaching change. They had a lot of changes in their starting lineup. But they were able to step up to the challenge and win the championship again. So congratulations to the Laurel Lady Nighthawks there. PCA finished second in that one. Third place went to Meridian. They were able to beat the Muddy River Counselors in the first game, putting them in the top 3. They lost to PCA and Laurel. So Meridian finishing third in 18U girls. Muddy River Counselors take the 4th place, beating Hattiesburg narrowly by 2. Hattiesburg gets 5th, and then Macomb Gators get 6th in the conference this year for 18U girls. Then we go down to 18U boys, and this one came down to an overtime finish. The Muddy River Counselors and the PCA Paladins. The Counselors this year have been rolling. They were 23-1 going into this championship ball game. Only loss being against the Tyler Heat in the Gulf Coast District Tournament by 2 points, 43-41. PCA coming into this game 18-6 on the year. Very good team. They've played well all season long. The Counselors won both regular season contests. The first one by 9, the second one by 11. So they were both competitive ball games as well. PCA and Muddy River for the championship. Everybody expected that to be the case. The number 1 and the number 2 teams. The way they make the championship game is very convincing. So the Counselors play Macomb. Macomb beat Jackson in the 4 and 5 matchup, first round of the tournament, to play the Muddy River Counselors. And so Macomb makes it there. The Counselors win 97-39 over Macomb to get into the championship ballgame, nearly beating them by 60 points. And then you see PCA and Laurel. Paladins dominated the Nighthawks. I mean, they were up 19-0 before Laurel scored, up 27-5 after the first quarter. They ended up winning the ball game 72-34. So both teams went to the championship ball game in convincing fashion, and PCA was playing very sharply in that matchup against Laurel. They continue that in the championship ball game. In the second quarter, they go up 22-11 on the Counselors. The Counselors have done a good job this year of being able to take deficits and being able to come back from them. But against a team like PCA, you had Scotty Covert, who was going off. He finished the ball game with 29 points. It's a big time performance in the championship ball game. The Counselors, though, able to force overtime right there at the end. Is 51-51 going to overtime, and then the Counselors dominate overtime. 62-54 was the win for the Counselors, winning their second MSAHA title in a row. They won last year. They win again this year. Tough for PCA as they put together a very good ball game, but they just come up short, and the Counselors win the championship. So in 18U boys, the Muddy River Counselors were the number 1 team. PCA was number 2. Followed up in a third place game with Laurel winning 70-62 over Macomb. They get third. Fourth was Macomb, of course. Fifth, I do believe, fifth place ended up, fifth place was with Meridian. The Meridian Flyers finished 5th. They were 7th in regular season in the conference. They finished 5th in the tournament. 6th, I do believe, went to Jackson. I'm not sure if in the Jackson and Hattiesburg game who won that ball game. I think Jackson won. You can correct me if I'm wrong, and I think Hattiesburg finished 7th. I wasn't really sure about that 6th and 7th, but I know Meridian did beat Jackson and beat Hattiesburg in narrow fashion, but able to win those ball games. And so that was the 18U boys bracket for this tournament. So this was the first season that these tournaments were not double elimination. I think it went pretty successfully. I think it allowed the teams, even the teams on the further down in the conference, to be able to get some competitive games later on, and then for the championship teams to just have a single elimination path to the championship ball game. So I thought it was a good thing, and we had real deal championship games on championship Saturday. So I think that was something that was a very, very much a positive for the league. Also, we had a lot of cool things happen over the weekend. So Thursday night, we had the award ceremony for the All-Stars as well as competitions. We had a free throw, we had a 3-point, and then we had a dunk contest. The MSAHA dunk contest came back from 8 years off. The last dunk contest in the MSAHA was 2017. There was one in 2016, one in 2017. And due to the 2017 one just wasn't very great. So since that one wasn't too great, they took 8 years off of it, brought it back this year. It was very good. We had I do believe 8 dunkers in this contest. And you can go back and check that out on the TSJW Network YouTube channel. So Michael Williams ends up winning the dunk contest. He had a pretty good dunk jumping over his teammate for the jam. We also saw some other good dunks there in that contest as well. So you can go check that out. But just a fun weekend overall. And so that kind of turns our attention a little bit to the All-Star game, which is on Saturday. So, every time you come out with lists, it's hard to keep them. It's hard to have them be at the most, it's hard to have them always be the most accurate because, you have coaches voting and, you don't always see the players performing. Sometimes they don't perform at their best against you. Sometimes they do. So, but the list came out as they did. And so this year, a little bit different from past years. The teams that did get players in the all-conference do not get alternates. So you're not going to have as many players on each team. I think we have 12 on girls, 12 on boys as well. And so that lines it up for Saturday. We will have those ball games for you right here on the TSJW Network YouTube channel. Laura Willen, Val's Marketplace brings you that as well. Do want to remind you to hit that subscribe button. Definitely hit it. Also share the stream with anybody who may be interested in this. This is our last show of the season. Going to be a little shorter. We don't have any guests here today, and it's going to wrap up this season. We don't have anything to look forward to other than some too early analysis of next year. So we look a little bit, if we talk about the girls a little bit for next year. So in the girls, we had a lot of youth out there, not terribly many seniors in the conference other than Meridian. Meridian had 7 seniors on their basketball team. They're probably going to struggle next year in comparison to what they have been. They have been a very strong ball club, like a top 3 team. They were a 4 seed last year, but they were a 3 seed the year before that. They've been good in this conference, been very competitive in this conference. They're probably going to have more of a struggle next year. So they're probably going to drop out of that top tier. The Laurel Lady Nighthawks, they only had 2 seniors on their basketball team. Emily Beach being a rotation player that they're losing, which they'll definitely miss her, but that's only one player there that is in rotation. Laurel, most likely, and this is, of course, you never know when people, if they stay or if they leave or if they move away or whatever, so you never know. But this is making the assumption that they stay throughout all their years in high school. But that Laurel team should be very good next year, just even better. They've got Coach Cliff Jenkins, who I do believe plans on coming back to coach again. He's done a great job this past season, and I think he's going to do a good job next year. I think Laurel will be very good, probably still in a position to be the favorite. But I will say PCA did lose one senior in Mary Marcella, but their team was very young. So they had Cameron Covert, who led their team. She's 15. So now you have your other players in the starting lineup 12 years old. So you're talking about an extremely, extremely young team. And then those young players very talented as well. PCA is going to be good again, but the thing about them is that next year they'll still be young. They'll still have years to go. So you wonder if next year is going to be their year or if it won't be. So that'll be yet to be seen. PCA probably could use one more piece to get over that Laurel hump. They did well against them. They defended pretty well against Laurel. Just didn't quite have the firepower to get them. Laurel's pretty deep team. PCA only had 6 players overall. That proves to be difficult for them as well. Then you have the Muddy River Counselors. Counselors supposed to bring back pretty much their whole team as well, losing 2 seniors for them. But they're looking like they should be able to get better next year. They're a team that runs their fast team, quick team, similar to how Laurel is. The Counselors not as deep as Laurel was. Laurel was able to go a good bit on their bench and be able to substitute out their top players to get rest. Counselors were unable to really do that as much. Had a tough time getting over the hump against Laurel, though they didn't this year. But they should be a pretty good team as well. You never know who will walk through the door for these teams. The Counselors have young players that they look to develop as well. I think the Counselors will be competitive. Hattiesburg should be able to take a step up. They're only losing 1 senior. Their top 2 players are young, very young, and they should be getting better next year. If they make any additions, they'll be good. Hattiesburg got better over the course of the season. They had a coaching change, and they lost a few players as well, so they kind of had to rebuild. And I think they did a good job over there rebuilding. And so I think that they will be better next year. So that is interesting as well. Another thing, then you got Macomb. I don't know. I really don't know the ages of the Macomb players. I think that a lot of them are pretty young as well. So it should be interesting to see how they continue to develop over the course of the year. So that's the girls' field of what we can see from next year. If we look at the boys' field, so obviously you have the number 1 team being the Muddy River Counselors. They only have 1 senior. That was Ethan Viverka. So barring any changes, that team's supposed to be relatively the same. They should be pretty good. They'd be the favorites at this point in time looking forward, but PCA would be a good team as well. Now, PCA is losing Tate Boggs. That is a major player for them that they will be losing. They're going to have to figure out a way to make up for that. That is a control guy for their team and has done a lot of good things for PCA over the course of his career there with the Paladins. And they're going to have to go without him next year. Scotty Covert will be a senior next year. They'll have him back. So they're still going to be a very competitive team. I would expect them to still be in the championship ball game. Looking forward to that. And they've got young guys who can play as well. But they're going to have to be able to Tate Boggs, good defender, good control player, developed his shot into being money, especially this past year. Very good players. Going to be hard to replace. They're going to have to figure that out next year. And then you have Laurel, Laurel is probably going to find themselves in tough way. They're losing major pieces. They're losing Ethan Beach. They're losing Brock Anderson. They're losing Landon Hollingsworth as well as Miles Phillips and Isaac Powell. I think that may be all 5 starters. I think they might be losing all 5 starters on their team. That's going to be rough. They're probably going to be looking to add some players. They're going to have to develop some of those younger guys that they have. So Laurel's probably going to have a down year next year unless they have some additions. But they're losing a lot from this season here, where they were able to finish 3rd in the conference, which is pretty good. Then you got Macomb. I don't know if Macomb had any seniors this year. Not that I know of. I'm not sure. But if they do not, I would expect them to only get better next year. They were able to be competitive. First year in the MSAHA, finishing 4th. Pretty impressive there. I would expect if they do not lose anybody, I would expect for them to just get better. They've got a lot of height. I don't think that Seth Miller is a senior, but he possibly could be. I was not able to see that, so I'm not sure about that. If he is not a senior, I think McComb's going to be a pretty good competitor here in this league. Then you have the Meridian Flyers. Now that's a team that I think is going to rise, up in the conference, and so Meridian. I mean, so you have Meridian with Cooper Franklin and Brody Coker. This past year, they got better over the course of the season. They were mostly 16U. They competed very hard with the Muddy River Counselors in 16U. So since they really didn't play at the 16U level over the course of the conference, they did not have a good record in conference in 16U. So they found themselves with the lowest seed, playing the number 1 seed Muddy River Counselors. They were up on the Counselors for the majority of the game. Counselors were able to take it over and win in the end in that ball game. So Meridian, I do believe they end up finishing 4th, I do believe, in 16U. But they could have been in the championship game. They were very, very competitive there. Most of their team was 16U. They lost 1 senior this year. I expect them to be very competitive. I think Brody Coker's a senior next year. I think Cooper Franklin is as well. I think they're graduating after next year. So I know this will be a big year for Meridian. They're going to be expecting a lot out of themselves next year. So Meridian's a team to watch out for next season. They also finished on a very good note, finishing 5th in the league. They played a game against PCA. They lost, I think, by 30, but PCA was a very good team, obviously, this season. So Meridian's a team to watch out for. Then you got Hattiesburg, and Hattiesburg just finds themselves in that tough way in the fact that their players stagger in ages, so they keep losing players every season. Right when they're trying to get some chemistry together, they lose somebody every season. So lost Jeremiah Carraro and Charlie Cotton after this season. But next year you're supposed to still have Keller Russell on your team. And then, that 14U squad, we saw them in the 3rd place game against the Counselors. They did very well as well. So those guys, if they continue to develop, continue to work on their game, maybe even grow a little bit, you're talking about a team that could make a little bit of noise next year with the Hattiesburg Forerunners. Then you have the Jackson Victors. Now, the thing about the Victors is that they would be, if you were to make a early prediction there, them and Meridian, they're going to be very competitive next year, most likely. I don't know. I don't think that they had seniors this past year, the Victors. So next year should be pretty interesting for them. They had a good season. They especially started out well. We're talking about the 18U. Obviously, the 14U won the championship, and the guys on that team are going to be moving up and everything like that. So, or some of them. Not all of them. Some of them are still going to be 14U, but they should be very competitive. They had a really good season this year. In 16U, they were good as well. But the thing is, the way they finished in 18U, like losing to Macomb, they lost to Macomb 3 times this past year. You wouldn't have really expected them to lose that game at that point in time. But they did. And they also lost to Meridian as well. And so I think Meridian and Jackson is going to be very competitive next year. I think the Victors could make some noise up there at that 3 spot. But we'll see. This is way too early, of course. But definitely looking forward to seeing what we've got going on for next season. But folks, that'll bring us to the end of our show. I've appreciated you guys for following the MSAHA right here on the TSJW Network throughout the season. Our final bit of coverage for the MSAHA will be the All-Star game on Saturday. Coverage will begin at 2:30 p.m., Lord willing, from Decatur, Mississippi. But the 2024-25 MSAHA season is in the books. And I'm Trellis Williams, your host. This is the MSAHA Basketball Weekly Show. It ends right now. We out.